Have you ever played a game that you've fallen in love with? No matter what happens, you found yourself coming back to it time and time again, collecting all those last collectibles or at least finishing the last boss fight. Having a blast with it no matter how many hours you've poured into it yourself. Getting comfy on the sofa, turning off the lights, or even snuggled up nice and warm under a blanket next to your radiator. Wondering what's next for the journey of Silent Hill or Banjo-Kazooie or even Isaac Clarke from Dead Space, or when's the next time you're going to be recreating your own hospital from Theme Hospital? Well, unfortunately, sometimes these games just never return. So then what do we do then?
Oh, Detective Tapp, I want to play a game.
Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?
This is going to be an adventure.
It's a shame when we see games that make a huge impact on us as people or even on the industry. It seems like they only have a short time to shine and they suddenly disappear. Of course, it entirely depends on how you feel about this, of course, because for some people this may not be a shame at all, but actually something that's quite good. Seeing games like Eternal Darkness capturing the pure terror and having an experience that people will never forget, and also solidifying itself as a cult horror classic, as a game that must be experienced by people never actually returning, seemed to be a bit of a legend of itself. Eternal Darkness being able to solidify itself in history seems to be quite a turn on for some people when it comes to the horror genre, knowing that there's only going to be one type of this game and it's not ever going to be a dead horse beaten out of ideas. But of course there are many people around the world. I myself want to see more from Eternal Darkness, but no, it's never going to happen. So what do we do when we have fans of survival horror of the 90s and even early 2000s and really want to capture that spirit again? Well, that's when we start talking about spiritual successors, when they can bring in the new fans and even please the old ones by understanding the genre's love and exactly what people loved about the original games in the first place. Making spiritual successors of much loved titles of the past is a very common thing in the industry, from games like Songs of Horror, which takes the Lovecraft horror and psychological scares of Eternal Darkness, or even games like the up and coming Negative Atmosphere looking to scratch that fleshy itch that Dead Space fans have always been craving for. Of course, you also have games like Skater XL bringing back the much needed love physics style of the Skate series, and of course you cannot forget the incredible success of the Bloodstained series, Ritual of the Night, and of course Curse of the Moon, making sure Castlevania fans finally get that Castlevania game that they've always wanted. These are all love letters to these games and genres of days gone. Trying to re-spark the community and love for these games, it's something that a lot of mainstream companies don't really see, and therefore the demand is there and they're not really itching towards it to please the fans that really want it. But what do I mean by spiritual successor? It can easily be muddled with inspiration. A game that is inspired by games of the past is usually something that can innovate on its systems and even build and grow and inspire more games after it. I.e. of course Dead Space, for example, which is heavily inspired by Resident Evil 4, though not exactly being its spiritual successor, but instead using the third person camera and even the inventory space to sort of innovate on its systems, making sure that for the future games are inspired by Dead Space and so on and so forth. But when I say spiritual successor, I mean a game that is intended to be exactly like games that we loved in the past. Of course, iterating on memories and even making references to the game itself. And of course, if there's one game in recent years that's allowed players to sort of reiterate and even revisit 1998, it would have to be Invader Studios' Daymare, the originally intended Resident Evil 2 remake, but of course it was cancelled down when Capcom decided to make a remake of their own. I actually followed this for years and was very eager to try out their own interpretation of Resident Evil 2, but of course it all changed, and actually for the better, because out of it they got their own game and their own IP, Daymare 1998. And because of it being a cancelled down Resident Evil 2 remake, you can see that this game was made for survival horror fans of the past, while replicating the modern slick camera styles of recent Resident Evil games. You must be on top of your game in the inventory system in this game, and of course with ammo and health it's always hard to come by, but also making some changes to what we know about the survival horror series when it comes to ammo, being able to actually control how much bullets should go in a clip, and even making sure reloading is something you must think about whether or not you want to actually risk losing the ammo or risk taking some damage here and there. It's actually a really cool way to change up the formula while still replicating something that we love in the past. Daymare's cheesy dialogue and even cliche story is a ton of fun to explore. Any Resident Evil fan of the past should really pick this game up and give it a go. It isn't top tier quality, of course not, but it's purely made with love and passion, and you can see that it's made by people who understand what Resident Evil used to be and actually understand what survival horror should be. I really do appreciate Invader Studios for making this game, so thank you so much for pouring your heart out for this.
I'll lend a hand.
But But sometimes it's not just indie game developers creating games that they loved playing in the past. Sometimes it could be big name studios going back to an idea that they loved from the past and that they feel like they can actually do better with a little bit more experience, but also as a way to remind fans of why we loved their games in the first place and exactly what they're passionate about. And when I say big name companies, I mean the names like Ubisoft, Konami and even Rare. They've all created games that really are iconic to the past and even iconic in the gaming industry. For example, with Ubisoft in its forgotten past with the Prince of Persia, of course they tried to replicate its old style with the Assassin's Creed Chronicles series, refreshing the old school Prince of Persia style but of course with their most recent IP. Or you can't forget GoldenEye, maybe one of the most influential first person shooters of all time and also probably being one of the most popular multiplayer games of the 90s. But of course with 007 being a movie tie-in game, Rare wasn't able to create the sequel that fans always wanted, so what they had to do was the second best thing. Create a game that is a spiritual successor to GoldenEye, upgrading on all its mechanics but also replicating everything that it did so well. Fast paced gameplay, of course an addictive multiplayer, and I'm talking about Perfect Dark. Creating a spiritual successor must be a very difficult task. For fans who love many games, we can instantly tell what makes the game feel like the games that we love. From going into a game and understanding how it should feel or even how it should sound, we can instantly pick out what exactly makes the game feel like the games that we once loved in the past. Konami seem to understand that fans want a next installment in the Silent Hill series. It's the only reason they're clearly not letting it go to someone who probably could do a better job than they're actually ever doing. So what they decide to do after that is license a Saw movie tie-in game. It replicates the Silent Hill style but in all the wrong ways, using Saw's aggressive visual horror style with the industrial setting to try and sell it as a spiritual successor to the long loved Silent Hill franchise. And well, it just felt like a bit of a spit in the face for all the fans. Now don't get me wrong, the Saw game itself isn't the worst game in the world, and I mean for movie tie-in standards it's actually pretty good, creating some feelings that are really well connected to the films themselves, but using the word spiritual successor to sell it as a spin-off to the Silent Hill series, it just sounds like something you would expect to hear from Konami. Saw in any way didn't actually replicate anything to do with Silent Hill. Yes, maybe it has a little bit more rust here and there than the average game, but that's about it. Though Saw has some good ideas with puzzles and sort of visual elements in the game, it itself just sort of felt like a movie tie-in game trying to make a buck out of the franchise, but also trying to get into the hearts of fans of Konami, and well, only just disappointing them even further. But many times we see big companies not even giving a game a second chance. From games like the System Shock series or even Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, we see these games that are groundbreaking or even fans really love not sell too well and not giving the developers a second chance to fix where they went wrong or even maybe improvise and even improve on what they could have done better. And the developers of these games know exactly what they should do. Leave the company and create a better game themselves. And that's how you get companies like Playtonic, which created Yooka-Laylee, and Yooka-Laylee The Impossible Lair, which is harkening back to the old Collectathon days, and even games like Donkey Kong Country, having these games come back into the future and seeing exactly what they could do and exactly how they could improve it, and at the same time making sure fans are still pleased with the overall outcome. But of course sometimes it isn't just about replicating what you did in the past, and sometimes it's on improving that as the fans wanted to see. And that's when Ken Levine comes in, who put together a little team and made a little classic known as Bioshock. If there had to be a definition for what Spiritual Successor had to be, then the picture of Bioshock would be just underneath it. I remember the first time I played Bioshock and I was left with an experience in a world that I just felt so connected to, and it's hauntingly dreamlike but at the same time scary in all its darkest corners. System Shock was very well known at this point, and obviously Ken Levine knew he had to step up his game with the visual and the world building, and it's exactly what Bioshock did, and it innovated games for the future that we still see to this day. I could say so much about Bioshock, but of course that's not the point of this video. But if you want to see anything to do with Bioshock, then please go check out my friend Mayor Hairbear, who made a fantastic retrospective on his YouTube channel, so please go check out his series and show him all the love in the world. Thank you very much. But then every now and then you get a time where developers and even directors have a significant style that fans can instantly pick out of the crowd, and replicating them throughout their careers is something that fans really love to see. It's why Team Ico are so well known for their thought-provoking stories in the likes of Shadow of the Colossus, which was itself a spiritual successor to Ico, and of course The Last Guardian, which of course itself is a spiritual successor to Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. Or you get legendary creators like Shinji Mikami, which created so many great games and series, even stranding from Devil May Cry and even Resident Evil, and of course many more. Mikami is forever going to be a powerhouse within the industry, and his style will always be replicated and innovated on for futures and years to come. He's known for his third person over the shoulder style thanks to Resident Evil 4, which practically changed the way that we played games forever. And we're seeing this style be replicated and used in so many games that he chose to direct himself, with the likes of Evil Within and even Shadows of the Damned, selling themselves as not just the next Mikami adventure, but also a glimpse in the past and how we love these games all over again thanks to games like Resident Evil 4 and other classic survival horrors he may have had his hand in.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
With the likes of games like Tomb Raider or even Resident Evil, we see these games iterate and change as generations move forward, exploring new ways that we can actually experience these stories that these developers want to tell. But then unfortunately you get the games that aren't making the same sort of money as these characters or even games, and they have to be left behind because the companies don't really see any profit or even any point on moving on with them and wasting so much money to see what they can bring for the future. And that's when we get amazing developers and fan bases who are willing to take that risk for these franchises to push forward for the future, and that's when VR comes to play. Virtual reality is still very experimental, but because of that we're able to see so many different types of games which are harkening back to games of the past, and it's fantastic. And though it may be in very early alpha right now, Portal Studios is creating an intense and satisfying stealth game known as Unknightly. It feels just like the original Thief games, but of course with a little bit of Assassin's Creed thrown in there, making sure the players are able to take full capability of the VR functions and even being able to climb in a full three-dimensional world, and making sure that it's all entirely down to their skill and movement to get through each mission, but at the same time harkening back to the love of Thief and exactly what it means to play these old school stealth games. I really do appreciate that they made this, and it does feel wonderful to play, and it's good to see that Thief gets a little bit more love in a completely different medium than we're used to. If someone said to me that in VR you're going to be playing survival horror games and they're going to feel exactly like the old days with Resident Evil and Silent Hill, I probably would have laughed in your face and told you that it was impossible. But then I was proven completely wrong with the likes of Organ Quarter. This uses the dark unknowing inspiration of Silent Hill with the disturbing monster designs, the claustrophobic hallways, and of course the unnerving sound effects. This game really does throw you into the heart of survival horror in VR, and it's definitely worth any Silent Hill fan out there just to check it out, because it is a good experience and you can tell it's made with love. And this really does go a long way. It's the fact that we're able to capture the pure heart and spirit of these games, even though they're in completely different mediums or even genres that they were originally prone to in the past. And it's amazing to see these games grow and even become popular and even making their own style of games and even inspiring many people after it. For example, if you take a look at Stress Level Zero, who create amazing VR games which actually revolutionise the way we play VR, it's very impressive to see what they come up with, but also they wear their inspirations on their shoulders and they know exactly where they're harkening back to. For example, when you look at Duck Season, and you can see that it is clear inspiration from the light gun era of Duck Hunt, or their revolutionary masterpiece Boneworks, which actually almost feels exactly like a Half-Life game. It's something very experimental but filled with its own self-aware humour, and it knows exactly what to do to please the audience and even make certain nods to these games that they know they're inspired by. It really does just fill me with joy to see so many games have so much love and heart put into them, making pure references to the games that came before them and also making clear nods to their idols. I love to see games like Bioshock, Perfect Dark, Unknightly, 2 Point Hospital and many more. It's just amazing to see so much love and care put into something that clearly developers care about and they understand exactly what their fans want, and even then it could be fans understanding what they want and exactly what they want to see out of these games for the future. So thank you so much for all these developers and even creators and content creators who put their heart and soul into something that they love, to be able to express exactly what they enjoyed when they were younger and even express what made them the person that they are. I love to see people talk about their favourite games, favourite films or even favourite comics, because you can really see a lot of that person within these sort of subjects. So if you do make reviews or if you do make video games, I want to say thank you so much for sharing that. It's amazing to see exactly what you experience, and it's amazing to see exactly what you like to see out of video games. games, because it's a great way to connect with people, and I just want to say thank you for the chance for letting me personally connect with you through your content. So when I make videos and I like to share my experiences with gaming and try and mirror it into my own life, I really hope that I can tell these stories that people relate with. I hope I can show funny times and even quite sad times, and hope that people can embrace that, and I really hope that helps me capture the spirit of the subject at hand. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I would like to know, what are some of your favourite games that have never returned? What are some of your favourite games that you would like to see a spiritual successor from but not a sequel? Or even then, what are your favourite games that are spiritual successors but also sequels? For example, Dark Souls is a spiritual successor to Demon Souls, which is what not many people actually know, but it's actually a fun little fact. So if a game like that is one of your favourites, please let me know, and please put a comment down below what you thought of this video. I really do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, why not like and subscribe to see more videos like this every week. We're so close to 1,000 subs, so I'm so excited to see when we get there. Thank you all so much for watching, and of course I'll see you at the next checkpoints. Bye bye.